Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the webinar on how to configure Microsoft Edge Internet Explorer mode. My name is Michelle Landwehr, and I'm a program manager for Aperture here at Microsoft, and I'll be your moderator today. We're going to show you how to configure Microsoft Edge with IE mode to improve compatibility, streamline productivity, and increase your security. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce the members of the Aperture team participating today. Our main presenters are Alex Lopez, Principal Program Manager, and Ty Grady, one of our other program managers. Welcome, everyone. You probably joined us because you're curious about the timing of events around the end of support for IE 11. We'll touch on that and cover how the future of Internet Explorer is in Microsoft Edge. Additionally, we'll share what Aperture is and how our team can help you with application compatibility. Finally, the core of this webinar is on how to configure, test, and deploy Microsoft Edge with IE mode. We'll close by answering your questions. Don't forget, we can answer your questions in the chat along the way. Okay, let's get started. Alex, Ty, the stage is yours.
Thanks, Michelle. So Michelle mentioned the end of support for Internet Explorer 11, and that may be why you're here today. Recently, we announced that on June 15th, 2022, we're going to end support for Internet Explorer 11 as a standalone application. But what we want to share today is more information about Microsoft Edge's dual engine advantage, which is the fact that Microsoft Edge and the Chromium engine supports your modern websites, but thanks to this great feature called Internet Explorer mode, it also supports all of your legacy sites. And Internet Explorer mode is going to be supported through at least 2029. And so today we want to take you through how to configure that and how to leverage that so that you can run all of your modern sites and your legacy sites in a single browser. Before I hand it over to Ty, I wanted to share a little bit more about our Aperture team and this great promise that we've made to our customers. Aperture is a support team that works with our customers who are deploying the latest versions of our software. We're here to help you if you run into any issues with your applications when you deploy that software. We've made a great promise around Microsoft Edge. And our promise is very simple. It basically says that if your applications run in Internet Explorer 11, legacy versions of Microsoft Edge, or supported versions of Google Chrome, they're going to run in Microsoft Edge. And if you do run into any issues, you can reach out to us and our support engineers will help you at no cost. We are a no-cost program. If you're interested in learning more about what we offer and how we work with our customers, or if you want to submit a request for assistance, you can go to the AKA link that's listed there, which is just aka.ms/Aperture. We've worked with almost 400 customers now who've been deploying Microsoft Edge, and we've learned a couple of really important things. The first is that our promise is really true. The vast majority of your sites are going to work in Microsoft Edge. And most of our customers, the issues that they've had are really questions and basic help and how-to needed in setting up Internet Explorer mode. And so that's why we really decided to make this webinar. It's really to help educate our customers on what we're seeing, what we're learning from many of you to help you on your journey to deploy Microsoft Edge. So I'm going to turn it over to Ty here, and I'm going to quickly introduce him. Ty is one of our Aperture managers who has worked with customers for a number of years now. So he's got that frontline experience of really understanding, what you're trying to do and the issues that you're running into. Prior to that, he was an Internet Explorer support engineer. And recently, he actually joined our engineering team to take all of those great learnings from our customers and help make sure that we're continually improving the browser so that we continue to just get better over time. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ty.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Alex. I appreciate that. So we've made reference to this concept of legacy sites a couple times already. And I want to kind of start from zero and talk about what a legacy site actually is. So a legacy site is anything that relies on pre-HTML5 technology and methods that are no longer supported by modern browsers. The most common example of this that we see today are ActiveX controls like Java. So what do these look like in a modern browser? How do these legacy sites display? It kind of depends. You may see a loss of functionality. Clicking on buttons or something like that may not function as you would expect. It might not display properly, so you might see sizing or positioning issues. You also might see unsupported browser or unsupported technology type messages on sections of your pages. So it can manifest in a few different ways, but these are some of the common symptoms.
Ty, we often joke about it internally, don't we? But sometimes it's just really obvious, right? It looks like a really old site compared to some of those really modern, sleek new sites.
Yeah, that's a great point, Alex. Oftentimes, it's pretty obvious that something has been hanging around for quite a long time, and you can kind of have that ancient Internet Explorer feel to it. So, yeah. All right, moving right along here. We've heard from our customers that they actually have quite a few legacy sites in their environments. And these aren't necessarily just old ancient pieces of software. Some of these are really valuable assets that need a path to modernization. So among our customers, our enterprise customers, the average number of legacy websites and apps comes out to 1,678. So it's not a small number necessarily. Building on that, based on a recent Forrester study, the amount of money that it tends to cost to modernize some of these web apps and sites comes out to, on average, around $335,000. Again, not a small number. So we want to help with that process as much as we can. And the main way that we can help with that is through Microsoft Edge and its dual engine advantage. So Microsoft Edge uses the Chromium engine for modern sites and the Trident MS-HTML engine from Internet Explorer 11 for legacy sites. So Microsoft Edge is the only browser with this dual engine advantage, allowing you to load all of your sites, modern or legacy, in one browser. IE mode supports all of the document modes and enterprise modes that were supported in Internet Explorer 11, any of those ActiveX controls like Java, browser helper objects, and any of the Internet Explorer settings and group policies from before.
Yeah, and really our customers have told us that they love this. It's this ability to move forward and manage only one browser in their enterprise instead of having multiple browsers for each of their users in their company.
Exactly. So it really streamlines the user experience for those end users. They don't have to worry about clicking into one browser for old stuff, one browser for new stuff. It's all in one place. So it makes it very streamlined.
Great.
All right. So the first major challenge here is kind of building up that inventory of those legacy sites. And this can be a little bit challenging, knowing how many of them there are, where they are, who owns them, what state they're in, and all that kind of thing. We definitely recommend checking out this IE mode getting started guide here. It's at this AKA link below, aka.ms/IE mode guide. It provides a really great big picture of the whole process. So part of that process of moving to Edge with IE mode is building up that inventory. And one of the tools that we recommend very highly is Edge Advisor. Got another AKA link for you here, aka.ms/Edge Advisor will get you started with setting that up. And I'll talk about that here in just a moment a little bit more deeply. Beyond that tool, we've had some of our customers find great success with just setting up a SharePoint list for users to report legacy sites as they run across them. And then once they report that, their IT teams can go and test and then move on from there. We also recommend ring-based testing for power users, starting with a relatively small group and then expanding more and more.
And Edge Advisor has been something we've gotten so much great feedback on from customers. Like that was really born out of customer needs and what they were looking for to make this process easier. And we literally took what customers were asking for and then produced a great tool for them.
Exactly. It's a great example of feedback in action.
Yeah.
So moving on to a little bit more of the Edge Advisor tool here and getting set up with enterprise site discovery. So the Edge Advisor tool in the M365 Admin Center helps you prepare your environment to deploy Edge, configure the scripts to perform site discovery, identify the sites that potentially need some additional IE mode compatibility configuration, and this will help reduce that manual testing time considerably by prioritizing the list somewhat. And then it also highlights some commonly used enterprise policies to kind of get you started with that stuff. One thing to keep in mind is that we typically recommend running enterprise site discovery for around 3 to 4 weeks to kind of hit those daily, weekly, monthly tasks to make sure we're hitting most of the sites that are going to be important for your enterprise. And again, there's our AKA link there.
Sorry to interrupt you, Ty. It is interesting, but oftentimes it is those older sites that might just be used by a couple of users. So even if you're in a period where, it's in the summer and you've got some folks that are out on vacation, it's really important to give a cycle for everyone to come back and everyone to hit those critical sites that they need.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So moving on to talk a little bit more deeply about the site discovery process. Over here on the right, we have an example of what a report could look like from site discovery. We highly recommend that you focus on the sites that have high page hits or high page visits and are flagged for potential issues in the list. So I'll talk about some of the different aspects of the report here. If you look at near the number 1 there, we have a button for remove non-issue sites. This list could potentially be very large, containing thousands of sites, but this doesn't mean that all of these sites are expected to have issues within Edge by any means. So this button can help chop down that list to a much more manageable level and only include those that have some kind of flag that may suggest they need some additional configuration in IE mode. We also recommend sorting the list by page visits. That's at that number 2 there. Click that and it'll order the list by page visits so that you can focus on those sites that have the most number of hits. If you look at an example here at the number 3, we can see this site is flagged as having a compatibility detection issue of an ActiveX control. So there's likely an ActiveX control on that page. It may need to be tested further for IE mode configuration. That being said, one thing to keep in mind is that just because this report flags it as having an ActiveX control doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be configured in IE mode. The reason for this is that some websites offer up different content based on the browser that the user is using. So it may serve up an ActiveX control to a user from Internet Explorer and may serve up something else to somebody using it with a modern browser. So this is just a tool to help prioritize that list and see what sites you need to go and check into a little bit further. Okay, so once we're ready to set up IE mode, we have a few group policies to configure. So there are 4 group policies that we have listed here. The first 2 are absolutely critical for IE mode to function. The last 2 are not strictly required, but they're definitely nice to have, and I'll go into kind of why that is the case. So first up, configure the enterprise mode site list. This is specifying the file name and location where that site list file is going to live. This can be on the local machine, usually that's for testing purposes. This can be on a network share. This can be hosted on a web server. Hosted on a secure web server is what we recommend for when you're deploying to an entire enterprise. But like I said, if you want to set it up on a local machine for testing, we think that's a great way to kind of get through that initial phase as well. Next up here is configure Internet Explorer integration. This is essentially toggling on IE mode as a feature. You can configure this policy to redirect legacy sites to Internet Explorer 11 standalone or to IE mode. Obviously, we would recommend IE mode. It's the better way to go. And then, like I said, there's a couple of these policies that are not strictly required for IE mode to work, but they really can help augment the process quite a bit. The first one here is allow unconfigured sites to be reloaded in Internet Explorer mode. This gives end users the ability to reload a given site in IE mode directly without it being added to the site list itself. So this is great for validation and testing. And I'll demonstrate how this works in a little bit. We'll do some demos and it might make it a little bit more clear. Finally, we have allow access to the enterprise mode siteless manager tool. This is the browser-based version of the siteless manager tool. If you've used the standalone version in the past, for example, it's very similar to that. It's just built into the browser. The browser-based version of the tool is considered to be the current version. The standalone version is not going to be getting any more updates, but the browser version is. So it'll be updated and adjusted, kind of improved over time. We are regularly providing new tools to support your transition from IE 11 to Edge. We have a new feature to help with testing your sites. IE Driver is a third-party tool commonly used by IT pros to automate tests in IE. As of November, IE Driver has a newly extended capability to support automated testing of IE mode in Edge. Learn more at aka.ms/IE Driver. All right. So now that we have the necessary policies in place, it's time to configure the IE mode site list and add our sites to that file. So I'll be doing a couple demos here to walk through that process and show some of this stuff in action. All right, let's take a look at some demos. So I have a couple ActiveX control examples here, kind of pre-selected. These are both publicly facing. They're just out on the open internet. I wanted to make sure that we selected things that were not really under our control. They're nothing secret about this. This will work on any ActiveX control out in the wild. So this first one here is meant to be kind of a date and time kind of thing. And the second one here is meant to be like a little barcode thing. So I wanted to show what they look like in a modern browser when they're not functional, so you know the kinds of things to look out for. In this case, we have a message that says ActiveX is not supported. That's very common. In this case, it's just a blank section of page. Depending on the complexity of the ActiveX control, this could be a big section of the page that's completely blank, or or very small. Something else that's very common is to have a little border with a little red X in it, like this thing mentions here. So these are common symptoms for that. So the scenario we're working under here is we have all of the group policies in place that I mentioned a little bit earlier. And we can take this as like we already ran site discovery, and these two sites came up on that report as having ActiveX dependencies and high hits. So those are good candidates to follow up with testing. So we're doing that now. So we're kind of showing what that looks like. So this site came up on that list. We want to come here and validate it. We can see that it does have some ActiveX support, so we want to try and reload it in IE mode, and we have a couple mechanisms for that. So this is recently changed, so I want to go over how to get into IE mode now. It's a little bit easier than it has been in the past. So there's 3 different ways to get in there. One is through the Settings and More menu up here in the top right, the 3 dots. If you come down here, there's this Reload in Internet Explorer mode option here. So there's one. Another way is to come over here to the tab itself, right-click it, and then there's the option again, Reload tab in Internet Explorer mode. The third way is on a link. If you right-click a link, you can find the option here, Open Link in New Internet Explorer mode tab. So there's 3 main mechanisms for easily dropping into Internet Explorer mode if you have the testing policy enabled. And then you can also pin the menu option here to the top of the taskbar. So if you're testing mini sites, this can be an easy option there. Okay, so all that out of the way, we want to reload this in IE mode and see how it works. We'll do that. Okay, we're in IE mode now. We can tell because of this little Internet Explorer E and this pop-up that pops up here. We also get the option of opening this page in Internet Explorer mode next time. This will add it to what's called the local IE mode site list. This is a new feature as well. This can help allow your users to test as part of their daily routine without interrupting them too much. So if you're outsourcing your testing to your other users and they find a page that is broken in Edge and they think it needs IE mode, they can reload it. And if that works for them, as it does for this page, we can see that date and time control is working now. They can go ahead and click this button here to open this page in Internet Explorer mode next time. So what this will do is this will add it to their local site list for the next 30 days, and that amount of time is configurable, while they report it then to be added to the site list officially. So they don't need to necessarily wait for that approval to go through in order to continue with their daily work. So new feature, and it helps kind of smooth out that flow a little bit. So that's great. We'll go ahead and close that. Like I said, this one looks like it's working as well. We'll validate this with the other ActiveX control here. So we'll use the other method. We'll use this little button to reload the tab in Internet Explorer mode. We're in IE mode now via the, you can see by the little Internet Explorer E, and we get the barcode control. Like I said, these are simple little ActiveX controls, but it kind of displays how it would work. So this is it. Very, very clean. It looks like both of these sites now are working in IE mode as we would expect. So we want to go ahead and officially add these to the IE mode site list so that they'll work long term. So I'll click over here to this other tab. This is the edge://compat page. Let me full screen this actually. This is kind of your one-stop shop for IE mode related stuff in the browser. There's these different tabs here that can give you different information related to IE mode. We'll focus on a few of them. The top option here, Enterprise Mode Site List. This is your site list as far as your browser is concerned. So if you ever have any issues with configuring the site list, or if you're unsure if the browser is getting the correct site list, that kind of thing, this is a good place to come and validate that those settings are correct. So from here, we can see the location specified by the group policy. In this case, it's a local file that just lives on the desktop, and its name is sitelist.xml. This will also be a place where you can view the different entries that are on the site list. In this case, it's just a blank file, so there are no entries here, but we'll go ahead and change that here in a moment. The other thing that I want to highlight here is this other menu option here on the left, Internet Explorer Mode Diagnostics. This is a great place for validating that the group policies are configured correctly. So there are some tests that the browser does to make sure that IE mode will work as you might expect, and you can kind of see the results of those tests here. First and foremost, it attempts to launch Internet Explorer mode, and it was successful in this case. That's good. It's working. A couple other things to kind of keep in mind here. Enable Internet Explorer and Windows features. So if Internet Explorer is disabled at the Windows feature level, IE mode will also not work. So the browser does a check to make sure that Internet Explorer as a feature is turned on. It is in this case, so we would expect it to work. Next is the Internet Explorer mode setting. This is the group policy for Internet Explorer integration. We do have that toggled on. You have the option of either pointing to Internet Explorer 11 standalone or IE mode. We've configured IE mode, and we would recommend you do the same. So that's all squared away. Finally, we'll come down here to this last box for group policy settings. This section deals with the IE mode site list location policy. So we specified in that policy that it is a file location on the local machine just for testing purposes. It lives on the desktop, and its name is sitelist.xml, as we discussed earlier. So that all looks squared away. We're good to go from that perspective. We're ready to add our sites to the site list. Now, this final option over here on this left-hand side, Enterprise Site List Manager, this option is here because we enabled it by policy as well. So if we didn't enable that policy, this option would not be here. We do recommend using the browser-based version of the tool versus that standalone version that we mentioned. This one will be getting updates and improvements over time, so keep that in mind. So we'll click over to that. And it looks pretty barren here. We don't have anything on the site list as yet, but we'll go ahead and change that now. So let me go grab the URL from this first example. We'll copy that. We'll go over here to add a site. We will paste the URL in there. And then we have some options here. It's like IE mode or the app or Edge itself. Some other more technical options that we'll probably cover in maybe a later webinar. I want to keep it a little bit simple for now. And then compat mode. Now, one of the most common questions we've gotten from customers is, this is kind of a long list. There are a lot of options here. What do they mean? Why would I choose one over another? What do they do? All that kind of good stuff. So I'll briefly touch on some of that. For the most part, if your apps and sites worked in IE11 out of the box with no additional compatibility features like enterprise mode and that kind of thing, default mode is the way to go. Default mode mimics the same behavior as an out-of-the-box IE11. So for our purposes today, we'll be using default mode. If you used IE8 enterprise mode or IE7 enterprise mode in the past with IE11, we want to just mimic those same settings here. So if you test your sites and they're working in IE11, but you see that they're in enterprise mode, just put the same settings in place here and we would expect the same type of behavior. There's also these other options down below for specific document modes. I generally recommend against using these options. It gets a little technical, but if you choose one of these options instead of the enterprise mode or default mode, this will override any other directives in place from the website itself or from the web server saying what mode that it should be loaded in. So my rule of thumb for this is don't use the document modes here unless you know for certain that it needs to be in that document mode and it isn't loading in that document mode through other means. So a little bit dangerous there, but the options are there if you need them. There we go. So nothing else is needed here. This is a pretty simple example. We'll go ahead and add the site. While we're at it, we'll grab that other URL. Copy. Add the site. IE mode default, all that is good to go. Okay. So for our purposes today, this is really all we're going to add, just these two sites. So we're ready to set this up and export it. Click this Export to XML button. We're going to go ahead and give it a version number of 2. And this is important to set the site list file name the same as it's configured via group policy. So for me, like we saw a little bit earlier, it's sitelist.xml. You just want to make sure that that lines up. And we're good to go. We'll export that. We will keep this file. And then because by policy, we specify that this file will live on the desktop, we want to go ahead and move it to the desktop. We'll do that. We'll replace the blank one that lives there right now, and we should be squared away. So if we come back up to this top tab, like I said, this is the site list as far as the browser is concerned. There's no entries here. It's because we haven't told the browser that we've updated the file. So by clicking this button, we'll cause it to go fetch it again. And we can see that the version number updated to 2, like we set, and we see our 2 site list entries here. So we'll go ahead and close these, and we'll try and reload them. I have them set as bookmarks here so we can get to them quicker. We'll test that one. By default, it loads into Internet Explorer mode. You can see by the little E, and we see that our ActiveX control with the date and time is working. So we'll try the other one real quick. Again, we see that it's loading in Internet Explorer mode by the little Internet Explorer E, and the ActiveX control for the little barcode is working as well. So it looks like everything's squared away here. From a user standpoint, whenever they hit these sites, they won't notice any difference necessarily other than the little E in the address bar. Things should just work for them. So this is the kind of behavior we're looking for. So that's it for the short demo I have here. We're going to hop back over to the slide deck to bring it home. All right, at this point, now that we've set up IE mode, we have all of our legacy sites added to the list and everything is working as we would expect for our end users. We can move on to the last step, which is disabling IE11 as a standalone browser. So this policy allows your IT admins to disable IE11 without affecting IE mode. So as I mentioned in that demo there, if you remove IE11 as a Windows feature, IE mode will also stop functioning. This is not that. This just turns off the IE11 standalone browser, and that's it. It allows IE11 to keep functioning. There are a few different ways that you can configure end user notifications, and I'll kind of go through why you would want to use some of these different settings. First of all, there's never. If you don't want your users to be notified whatsoever, they'll just be redirected to Edge, and it should be a clean experience. You can use always if you want to use this as somewhat of a flagging mechanism. So if you want to know if any sites are still being redirected to IE11 standalone so that your users can bring those up to the IT teams, you can use this as that mechanism. And then finally, once per user, if you want your users to just know that a change has taken place but don't want them hassled every single time, that could be the best setting for you. One more thing before we wrap up for today. I wanted to touch on the new cloud site list management experience. Now, here is what the current setup looks like. We configure the IE integration policy, then set up the on-prem infrastructure to host the site list, and finally point at that location via policy. The new experience lets you store your company's IE mode site list in a compliant cloud location instead of requiring on-prem infrastructure to host a site list. You'll find the new cloud site list experience in the M365 Admin Center, and we'll go through a little demo here of what that looks like in just a moment. Before we get started with that, there are a few prereqs to using this experience. First, you'll need to be an Azure AD tenant and have an Exchange subscription. You'll also need the right admin permissions. To help with this, we created a new role in the M365 Admin Center called Edge Administrator. Both global admins and Edge admins will be able to manage a cloud site list for IE mode through this new experience. One other thing to mention is this is only available on Edge version 93 or greater, and you'll have to have the latest versions of the policy files installed as well. So let's take a look at a demo. Let's open the M365 Admin Center. Here we have the home page, and over to the left, you'll see Org Settings. Org Settings is where you manage settings for various services and apps. We have a new addition here called Microsoft Edge Site Lists. Click on that area and you can access the new experience to manage your site list in the M365 Admin Center and publish in the cloud. This is our new cloud site list management experience. Let's create a new list to show how it works. You can see off to the right, I'm naming a new site list called Fabricam All Users and giving it a description. Next, we need to populate the site list. This can be done by either adding sites or by importing a list you already created. I'm going to import a list I've already created. Click Browse and open the file you want. Here's my XML list, and I'm going to upload this list to the new Fabricam all users. As you can see, 4 sites have been added, 3 are neutral, and 1 requires IE mode. Remember, neutral sites are single sign-on sites that need to be configured or else auth will fail. Now that the sites are populated, we can publish the list. I go back to the list, grab Fabricam all users, click Publish Site List, and specify a version. Now let's go back to the site list we just published and grab the site list ID. We need Edge to read the new site list that we just created, and that's why we need the site list ID. Open the registry editor, and under Policies/Microsoft Edge, you'll see Internet Explorer Integration Cloud Site List. Paste the new site list ID in the Value Data field. Now that you've set up the new site list in the M365 Admin Center, you can manage the site list and add or delete a site as needed. Once you edit the list, make sure to publish that list out again. Now that we've gone through how to use the new cloud site list experience, let's go over some key things to remember. First, for your users to receive the site list, they will need to be signed into Edge with their Azure AD account. Second, with the cloud site list management experience, you can publish multiple site lists for different sets of users, but users can only receive 1 site list at a time. For more information, please check out our docs page, which outlines all these details and more. And please note, Microsoft Edge with Internet Explorer mode has officially replaced the Internet Explorer 11 desktop application on Windows 11, in addition to retiring on certain versions of Windows 10 on June 15, 2022. If your organization relies on legacy Internet Explorer-based websites, you must prepare by setting up IE mode in Microsoft Edge before IE11 retires on Windows 10 or before migrating to Windows 11. IT admins should complete IE mode configuration and proactively disable IE for their users before June 15, 2022 to be ready for either scenario. All right, so with that, I'm going to kick it over to Michelle to bring us home.
We hope that this information is helpful as you move from IE11 to Microsoft Edge. Thank you again for joining us today.